Hello, I'm YugoSlavia and welcome back to the second channel video. Today I have some more Geography of Toycat for you. It's episode 6 series where I talk about geography and the world and stuff. And you might have noticed it's been a while since I've done one of these and things have changed just a little bit. The biggest one being the fact that I blue screened the background out right now. The biggest reason for that is because so many people were saying like, Toycat, you're covering your thing, your face cam, and even though this isn't a perfect blue screen, like look how weird it looks behind my hands, I think this is a good kind of compromise for now to kind of just, get rid of everything else in the shot, have less me in the shot, and have more maps. Because that's what you're all here for, right? The thing behind me, I assume. And yeah, today I wanted to talk about the thing behind me, which is going to be a pretty big thing behind me because it is a part of southeastern Europe that, depending on where you live in the world, is something you might easily forget, or depending on where you are, if it's really close to that, it might be something that's impossible to forget because of how strong and recent the memory is, because there was some giant wars there and they were really atrocious for a whole bunch of reasons. But yeah, basically I wanted to talk about Yugoslavia in today's video, a country which kind of formed together of like 6 separate countries. It left as 7 separate countries, and while it was in between, it was 8 separate socialist republics. You might be curious as to how that all comes together and happens, but it is a complex story. I think I'd explain some of, at least with today's video, and explain what used to be Yugoslavia and what all the countries within it are getting up to today. So hopefully you do all enjoy the video. Let's get straight into it. So let's start by explaining how Yugoslavia came together in the very, very broad strokes. Again, Europe, if you go really far back into Europe, you really need to just keep on going further and further back to explain how things got how they were. But the basic explanation is separate empires fell together, and then, lots of those countries from those empires that were kind of autonomous bits kind of came together to be the Slovenes, the Croats, the Serbs, etc. And eventually, they formed a country called Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia, if you don't know, is Yugo, as in, the Slavic word for south, and then Slavia, as in, like, Slavic people, because they were the South Slavs. There's a lot of Slavs in Europe, actually. There's the East Slav, there's lots of different parts of them, but South Slavs is what you could generally classify every country in Yugoslavia as. So they had this roughly common identity, even though it was split into lots of different bits. Slovenians definitely count themselves as very different to Bosnians, who are different to Serbians, again, we'll get into why that's such a big deal later, but for the most part, they were a roughly common group that formed a giant country together. And the big thing about the country that made them unique, especially during, the Cold War, is the fact that they were a communist country in Europe, but they were a communist country that got aid from the US because their leader, Tito, the one who overthrew the Nazis, got them out in the first place, was really not a big fan of Stalin, and actually started the non-aligned movement. So yeah, before I say anything else about this, actually, I learned a lot of this story from a man I met in Slovenia. I have a friend from Bosnia, and once, this is my credentials right here, once I traded £10 for 2,000 Serbian dinar. Still don't know if that was a good trade or not, but there are my credentials right there. As you can see, I've got Serbian money, a Bosnian friend, and I met a Slovenian man. That's enough for me to be definitely qualified in the matter here, right? But yeah, that said, let's start by talking about, because, by the way, and then they fell apart because there were some giant wars. Slovenia managed to get out, because the country was falling apart in the same way that the USSR was falling apart. Very similar timescales, very similar way the whole thing happened, and there were some serious wars. The Bosnian War, in particular, the siege of Sarajevo, the capital, and one of the more famous cities in southeastern Europe. It lasted something like 3 times the siege of Stalingrad. It was a truly, truly terrible siege. Lots of bad stuff went down. In fact, Bosnian War in general is, I think, the worst war in Europe since World War II. So, basically, the wars that ended Yugoslavia, pretty bad stuff, but let's talk about what they're up to right now, because it's slightly more happy than, oh yeah, hundreds of thousands of people died, and I think that's a better thing, right? So yeah, that said, the first country we'll talk about is Slovenia. Slovenia is an easy one to talk about, because I feel like they're the most European integrated, and, they're also the most European facing. You might know them because Melania Trump, Trump's wife, I get his daughter and his wife confused, but the Trump's wife, the first lady of the US, was actually born in Slovenia, so her hometown in Slovenia has a pretty big tourism boost, so Slovenia is happy with that one. But it's also, the population of mostly Slovenes, and it is, again, very integrated with Europe. They use the euro, officially, that is, so the only official Eurozone country here. They're also in the Schengen area, and they were the first communist-aligned country, and also first Yugoslavic country, to enter the the European Union in general. So yeah, Slovenia, very focused on making that happen, very exporty economy, and also they've got a lot of tourism going on because they've got lots of beautiful little stuff, and that's very similar to the second country we talk about here, which is Croatia. So Croatia is the one you've most likely heard of out of the, again, the 7/8 countries we're going through today, because Croatia is a country that looks just like this. It's kind of like a knife. Maybe that helps you picture it. If not, then Croatia's Croatia, and yeah, Croatia is it's one of the former countries that did very well because they have such a big tourism boost, because they have so many beautiful sites. There is 1,000 islands. There's over 1,000 islands, just to say, in Croatia, and each of these islands has like beautiful things to see because Croatia has a lot of coastline, as it so turns out. As well as that, the capital's Zagreb. They've got a bunch of sport team stuff going on. Croatia's doing pretty well for themselves as well. They're part of the European Union, the most recent member to join. In fact, they made it the EU 28 and they'll go back down to the EU26. I hate talking about that stuff because it's like going to go up and down. But yeah, they were the most recent member to join the European Union. And again, at some point they'll replace their currency with the euro and blah, 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 blah. That stuff will happen at some point down the line. Croatia's like the second most integrated country into Europe, which is kind of fitting given that they're the second closest. And yeah, they also control most of the coastline of the Adriatic Sea. At least when it comes to, the YugoSlavia thing. As you can see, the vast majority of it is Croatian, the tiniest bit is Bosnian, and the tiniest bit is Montenegro too, and also a little bit of Slovenia, but that's kind of that right there. As a funny little fact about Slovenia, Croatia, and the EU, Slovenia and Slovenia actually blocked Croatia for a little bit of time, because there's quite a few border disputes between Slovenia and Croatia. The tiniest one, and the one that to me is just like, really, this is a thing, is this amount of land is, disagreed upon between Slovenia and Croatia, so you can see, like, this is disputed land right here. It's such a tiny amount, but these, small issues over and over again, such as the place like the Libertarian land was founded. Again, there's lots of cool stories about the border between Slovenia and Croatia, but for now, let's just kind of show this one, because I thought this one was a pretty beautiful little example of just like, oh yeah, look how nice their border is. So yeah, here's the border. There's a little bit of land, and when you look at it like this, you're like, I guess I see why they're fighting over it. Isn't it beautiful? That's Slovenia, and that's Croatia. And in fact, actually, that's a lot of these countries. Even though, you picture them as war-torn because they were very war-torn at the time, Southeastern Europe actually has a lot of these, like, again, things that people like to see in a country, because that's what's going on just over here. So let's talk about the third country, again, out of 7/8/6, depending on your allegiances in Southeastern Europe, but that is Bosnia and Herzegovina. So Bosnia and Herzegovina is a very interesting country on a whole wide spectrum of levels. First, if you're into war, they had, again, the deadliest war ever, and that's not a good thing, but if you want to study that, that's your thing. But the thing that fascinates a lot of people is the fact that Sarajevo, the capital, is one of the most significant cities in Europe, you could say, as a whole. A lot of people call it like European Jerusalem, which I don't know if I agree with that. Like, I don't know if I'd even care about that. But the cool things about, Sarajevo and, again, Bosnia as a whole are the way the whole country has to function together. So, again, like I said earlier, all of the countries in Yugoslavia, all 7 of them. So, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, Montenegro, Kosovo, Serbia, Vojvodina, or Macedonia too. All of these countries, they definitely all have their own, like, distinct population. In Bosnia's case, it's the Bosniaks, the only native Muslim population, majority country in Europe. Very bizarre stuff. But yeah, although Bosniaks are the majority in Bosnia, they have a big split with a lot of Croatians and a lot of Serbians. This is the reason for the war. And to kind of make this better, in a similar way to how Northern Ireland's power sharing executive works, the government of Bosnia and Herzegovina has to consist of 3 presidents at any given time. One is a Serb, one is a Croat, and one is a Bosnian, and they rotate in and out every 8 months, just so everyone's happy. Like, trust me, you always have your own president. Then what they have is they have a Senate, where the Senate is based on the people, so there's always 5 Serbians, 5 Croats, and 5 Bosnians, as well as their regular parliament. And then as well as all of this crazy, like, we're going to keep things happy, they're also one of the few countries in the world to have 4 levels of government. So they've got the countrywide government, the Bosnian government. Then it's split into 2 separate kind of sub-regions, which you can see in, I believe it's this one right here, you can see. There is the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is the Croats and the Bosnians widely. It's about 51% of the country. The other 49% is Republic Srpska. Again, it's a hard word to pronounce, but it's a Republic Srpska. It's the the Serbian country within there, or the Serbian subdivision, and it's again Serbian majority for the most part. And then there's one little tiny subdivision that came about recently, which you can see just up there, which is actually controlled by neither. So yeah, basically Bosnia is the majority of the thing. It's on the Wikipedia thing, by the way. Bosnia is the majority of the country. Then there's the Serbian part that takes up a little bit, and there's this kind of weird federation going on. So there's 2 levels. We got Bosnia, the whole country. Then we got the 2 subdivisions. Then there's cantons, again, kind of like Switzerland, you could say. And then below that, there's sometimes municipalities. There's something like 100 municipalities across the whole country, which means that if you are in one of those municipalities' governments, you're under a 4-layer stack of government, which is a lot, I would say. But yeah, that's, I guess, something you can expect from a former communist country, which was all of these, by the way, which are all now market economies. Bosnia actually doing pretty well, growing pretty fast. and I guess that's kind of cool. And you know, the thing to me that is most interesting, because again, at some point I'm going to go here, just because again, Sarajevo was a very big, very well-known city, and still kind of is to this day, before the terrible stuff, and because they had this giant Olympics event in 1984, a lot of fighting happened there, so there's this now abandoned Olympic site that looks something like this. There is, you know, it's overgrown with stuff, there's a lot of, like, bullet holes, and, like, you'll find, like, random ammunition stuff around the place. Basically what I'm saying is there is an abandoned Olympics part of, like, Bob's, you know, it was high-tech at the time, that you can go and visit and just, like, explore it. Well, I don't know if you're meant to visit it, but you can go explore it, and that's something I'm going to do at some point, and you'll see it on this channel. But for now, doesn't this look cool? Don't you just want to kind of get inside this screen? I know I do. So, yeah, with that said, that is the third of the... there is a lot of countries here. That is the third of the 8 countries, and we're going through, like, the big, closer to European ones here. Next up, we've got Serbia, which is technically 3 of the 8 in 1. That's why it's 8, but then sometimes 6, because Serbia is the biggest kind of partner in the entire system. So, yeah, Serbia is kind of part of the collapse of the Yugoslavia, because, again, they were really upset with how much power their subdivisions got, because Serbia didn't just exist as one country, which is what they kind of want to believe they are right now. They existed as 3. Serbia had 1 vote in their, Federal Republic. Then Vojvodina, the province the north, had 1 vote. And then Kosovo, the very, very, we have to stay hands off about what we say there, province, also got 1 vote. So there was 3 votes in Serbia. And at first, this was a problem for Serbia because, yeah, now our provinces get their own votes against us. But eventually, a Serbian leader got in, and he managed to get puppets within both those states, as well as a puppet in Montenegro, the smallest population-wise of all of them, and he managed to control the entire federation just by being one country. Basically, that's what led to the downfall in very, very short. But it's because of the autonomous regions of Serbia, which counted as their full-own republics, despite being subdivisions, not a full country. It's confusing, but that's how there's like 8 republics, but then 7 countries, but 6 countries going in, because Kosovo is not fully recognized. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about Serbia before we go into this. I'm sure you heard something about Serbia, such as, their part in the start of World War I, but they're a very, very big, power in Europe, at the times of their thing, and also, I think a thing worth mentioning is they were the largest population-wise partner in the Yugoslavia thing. I feel like every giant, union of countries has one giant kind of leading partner that eventually leads it a bit too much. And in this case, Serbia is probably that. Again, maybe that's too offensive to you, but trust me, look, I have Serbian money. I can't be offensive, right? But I have a friend who went to Serbia, right, actually, if you hear says how I got that, and he said it was lovely. So I just... makes it entirely fine for me to say that they're the biggest, and they might have led to the downfall. But I guess that depends on your whole own opinion. So yeah, then there's Vojvodina to the north. Vojvodina is very interesting out of all of these, because like I said, all the other kind of parts of the Yugoslavia are very, very Southern Slavic. And although that's true here too, there is a majority Serbian population in Vojvodina. That's how they kind of stuck together. Vojvodina is a very, 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 very culturally diverse place, and kind of show level, here is a map of places where each population is the majority. So yeah, here is mostly Serbian, as you can see, majority. Then there's Hungarian majority places. There is Slovak majority places. That's right, Slovakian places. There's Montenegrin majority places. There's Romanian majority places. It's like a giant mess for country in terms of the stuff, and the languages will actually switch back and forth depending on where you are in the country. So yeah, that is Vojvodina. The biggest city in Vojvodina, in case you're curious, is Novi Sad. And if you want to visit one of the weirdest, most diverse places in Europe, that's a thing you can do right there. But if that's not your sort of thing, if you're like, oh, that's kind of interesting, but what about the other subdivision of Serbia? Well, that is Kosovo to the south. Kosovo is the biggest, let's back away from that in international politics right now, because recognizing or not recognizing Kosovo is a very, very big deal for a country. So, yeah, they went independent in 2008 as the Republic of Kosovo, but they haven't really been officially recognized by still about a third of countries out there. So I have a map of it in one of these right there. So I have a map of it, as you can see right here, just above my head. I can't reach it though, because blue screen. But yeah, I have a map here just above my head of countries which recognize, Kosovo, and it might look like it's not too many, but again, this is just over half right now. And yeah, basically the majority of Europe, the majority of countries, they're into that sort of thing. But the thing is that a lot of countries don't want to, recognize it because it was a unilateral succession. There was a giant war. It was a terrible war. Bill Clinton got involved, so there's a boulevard in there called Bill Clinton Boulevard. There's a statue of Bill Clinton. It's wonderful. I kind of want to go and see that, honestly. As terrible as that is to say. But yeah, basically, Kosovo is a separate republic that Serbia still does not believe is separate. That's right. If you go from Kosovo into Serbia with Kosovo passports aren't accepted. But yeah, if you get if you enter through Kosovo and you get a Kosovo stamp, Serbians will believe that you have entered on their territory without their permission. There's a lot of weird things where Serbia pretends it's their territory, even though they have no effective control over it, and they're trying to normalize relations a little bit there. but it's not really working entirely fine. So yeah, that is the 6 so far, right? We got Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, we got Vojvodina, we got Serbia, we got Kosovo, and then we got 2 more. So Macedonia, another can of worms I'm going to just try and stay as far away from, because you say one wrong thing and the internet hates you forever. Because for some reason, the name is this incredibly offensive thing. So the compromise on their name is Macedonia, brackets FYROM. That's what most people seem to be just about happy with. If you say it's the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, sometimes shortened to Macedonia, that's fine. But if you just call it Macedonia, you start a whole war, because Macedonia is also known as a province in Greece, so Greek people get very upset. I think it's a dispute that goes mostly outside the realms of English, so I can't explain it too much besides saying both sides are really angry and I don't see why, but I'll just tell you both sides and then hurriedly run away from Macedonia, which, just as a fun tiny little fact, from Wiel, this city right here, a lot of the fake news from the 2016 election cycle came from this one little village. Exactly why, exactly how, exactly what they were doing making all the fake news is slightly beyond that, but it's a pretty cool little fact, right? Like, one tiny Macedonian village might have influenced the 2016 US election. Kind of cool, right? So yeah, with that said, there's Macedonia, or the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. Let's say both. Let's move on to the final Yugoslav Republic. By the way, they're the only one with the full thing in their name, just to make them safe internationally. Let's move on to the final Yugoslav Republic, which is Montenegro. So Montenegro is a really interesting one because it is the least populated of all of them. It is using the euro, but it's using the euro without the eurozone's permission. So yeah, you might think, like, why would you want to do that? And there aren't usually good reasons to use a currency without permission of that country. But there's a few particular examples where that is an okay move, and the euro is one of those. So yeah, Montenegro, it's not joining the euro just yet. It's trying to, but it's actually running into problems because even though they're most of the way to joining the EU, they're having issues because they're using the EU currency, which is a thing they'd be doing if they did join, but they're doing it before meeting the criteria, which is like breaking some rules by like skipping ahead too early. So they've run a bunch of issues right there. However, in spite of that, Montenegro is likely to be, either the 29th or the 30th or the 31st or the 28th, depending on... Again, things get a bit weird, but they're likely to be one of the newer members of the EU because they are a small Balkan country that are doing pretty well for themselves. This is the Montenegro right here. By the way, this is Southeastern Europe, and it's like the former Yugoslav territory, but a lot of people call this the Balkans, but the Balkans then includes Romania and Bulgaria. Just so you know, there's your little fun fact right there. But with that said, there is, also Montenegro, very, very beautiful country, has a, nice enough coastline that is apparently lovely to visit on the Adriatic Sea, and if you want to be like, but also, the name Montenegro is Latin for Black Mountain. Obviously, you can work that out. Montenegro, Black Mountain. And if you want to picture, like, what's going on in Montenegro, here's just a random nice picture of a random nice town, Perast, in Montenegro. Isn't this lovely? Don't you want to go see it? Look, behind me, it's Montenegro. Yeah. That's as close as I can do. Most people, that talk about how great Montenegro is, it is for the random great sites. And that's not my sort of thing. But if it is, then go visit Montenegro. Or, instead, go to the Sarajevo Olympics site. With that said, though, hope you did all enjoy this video. It's the second channel. I've been having a lot more fun with this recently, and I think I'm going to be doing more of these. So if you want to see those, keep letting me know. But if you thought it was terrible and I should stop making videos, I don't know why you subscribe, but or why you watch this to the end. But you could leave words in the comments down below. This was a super long video, but I'll see you all in another one. Bye.